Hey, hi, Manoj. Very excited to have you in our podcast today. Thank you so much for your time and giving us your time to talk to our audience.
Thanks, Abhay, and it's an equal pleasure being here and talking to you in this candid conversation. So let's go ahead immediately.
Super. So, Manoj, please introduce yourself to our audience. Who's Manoj and what does Manoj do?
Well, that's changed so much over the last few years, but still, I'll try my best to explain what I am today. So basically, I started off as an electrical engineer. I worked in some of the big Indian companies like Larsen and Toubro, and then after a few years being in the electrical engineering stream, I felt a pull towards IT. And that's when. In around the year 2000 when this e-commerce boom was really at its peak. So that's when I switched to IT, and as soon as I switched, bubble burst happened, in e-commerce. So this is how it typically goes, when you start chasing your passion, there's some things that happen in your life which are totally unexpected. But then, since it's your passion, you keep doing it for the love of it. So I pursued, and then slowly I worked for some smaller companies in IT initially, and then I moved to TCS and then to IBM. So my last job was with IBM, which was for lasted around 10 years. And after IBM, at that's the point. Last 2 3 years in IBM, I was thinking about something called as financial freedom. I had risen enough in my career. I had worked for 20 years by that time, and I had seen the corporate world. I'd seen good salaries. I had a very good role, a senior executive, worked in US. So all those things happened. But then, you realize that there's something more you're looking for in life. Money is not a problem, but probably time is. And that's when, I started pursuing my own journey towards financial freedom. And that's where I started learning about personal finance. I had no clue about personal. I don't have a finance background. I'm an electrical engineer basically, and then worked in coding and IT and all. So with no background in finance, I started reading books, and I read like anything. I mean, I used to read like 2 books a day. That kind of speed
Wow.
for almost a year. And so that's where I got pulled towards finance, and that's how I started taking financial freedom more seriously. And I realized that if I had to spend time with my kids and do what I really want to do, then I would need some kind of a freedom. And so I created my own financial freedom plan. I started investing in mutual funds, stocks, this, that, and then uh, in 2015, I quit my job and became financially free. And that's where I wrote my first book, which was From the Rat Race to Financial Freedom. And, life pulls you in different directions, and then you just, leave yourself free. So, whichever is the strongest pull, you tend to go towards it, and that's your passion typically. So I started writing after that, on personal finance and, on how to be financially free. And I started coaching on those fields. And today we have a full-fledged program where we, take people 3 times a year and, take them to financial freedom basically. So
Wow.
that's how this journey has been. And last 10 years of financially free life has been very, very beautiful. I have been able to spend a lot of time with my kids who are now, of course, in college and away from our home. So good that I was able to spend that time. And I'm very glad that freedom is something which came in my life. Now it's a different path again because I am pursuing for a different kind of freedom, which we'll talk about later probably. So that's been my journey of life, you can say, till now.
Excellent. Super. So interesting from being an electrical engineer to from was it L&T in Powai or was
Yes,
it somewhere
provide,
else?
provide. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Excellent.
You're aware.
From Powai to yeah, I have lived in Mumbai for about 10 years, and
Uh,
I used to live early part of when I had come to Mumbai early. There near Powai only is where I used to live, so I'm
Mhm.
very familiar. Every day I used to take a bus, which we used to
Yes.
take from Powai to Andheri West, and it used to
In
cross
fact, I
L&T.
was staying in Andheri, and I also used to commute from Andheri to Powai. And but I was there in Mumbai only for a year. After that, I was
Okay.
transferred to Baroda. I stayed there for a couple of years, and then I came to Delhi. So that's how it is.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Super journey. I think very interesting from being an electrical engineer to pursuing your IT career and then pursuing financial freedom and now coaching people on financial freedom. So I think very exciting and fulfilling journey it must be. So
Mhm.
what's your Bitcoin story? Where does Bitcoin come into all of this?
So I think it was about 4 years back, or I don't remember exactly. Somebody, one of the persons in our elite program.
Okay.
I don't want to disclose the name,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
you know, uh, this guy started investing in Bitcoin, and I was
Okay.
coaching him for financial freedom. And of course, I was
Okay.
using traditional instruments like, I mean, mutual funds or stocks or even bonds and debt funds. Everything, all
Yeah.
commodities and all those instruments. But this guy, when I looked at his portfolio, he had mentioned somewhere Bitcoin, and then I had a conversation with him, and I told him, "Why are you investing in these so-called useless instruments? And I mean, if you're serious about financial freedom, then you got to stick to certain, experience we have over decades of, coaching people and learning and my own freedom journey." So this guy was, I mean, I would say he started debating with me on Bitcoin. I had no idea what is Bitcoin. I mean, I have no clue, and I couldn't debate much with him. So because of my authority over him, in the sense that I was his
Yeah.
coach, so I told him that you should not be doing it, and I tried my best to persuade him not to get into Bitcoin any further. So this guy actually stopped investing in Bitcoin. But whatever conversation I had with this guy, it created a lot of flutter in my mind. He's talking sense, but somehow it doesn't fit into my expertise. As we call it. Experts are people who have gained a lot of experience in something and are closed now to understand things which are contradictory to what they have experienced. So I don't know what happened to him, but I started learning more about Bitcoin, and I started
Okay.
reading about it. I started having small conversations with people around it. Uh, I didn't have much knowledge, so I couldn't really go on and tell people to start investing in Bitcoin or even start investing myself. So after probably a year or so, started to invest a little bit myself, because and one of my ground rules is not to recommend anything unless you have experienced it enough. Um,
Yeah.
so I started investing slowly, and then I started. I read a lot. You know that already well.
Yeah.
So I started reading a lot, and
Two books a day.
I mean, not at that speed now. I mean, that was a amazing time. That was in US actually. You get. I
Okay.
mean, you know that. So you get a lot of spare time for yourself also. When
Correct.
you're in a job, yes, you're committed, but weekends and
Yeah.
even during the weekdays after a certain time, like five or six
Yes.
or seven, whatever, you have enough time for yourself. So anyway, so that was not the speed, but then I had enough curiosity in me to learn more. And so today the situation is that I invest every week in Bitcoin. I mean, I'm a regular kind of SIP based investor. I'm taking some of the principles from what I learned in personal finance, that don't get too greedy, don't get too fearful, keep investing slowly, systematically, forget about volatility. Those principles which we had learned over equity markets, so we're bringing in there. And now I have started recommending Bitcoin to a lot of my people who are in my program, and it's a very interesting journey. And we had a few sessions, I think Ayush and I, and few sessions with our people on what is Bitcoin, and some FAQs
Yeah.
people have, and it was very interesting for me as well. So I think in life, the overall point, what keeps you happy is you're learning new stuff and you're excited about something. So that's my journey so far. I'm very excited about Bitcoin. I am investing regularly for many years now, and I am recommending it heavily to my followers and people who want to believe in me. So that's how it is.
So
And
what changed for you from telling your customer or client to say, hey, this seems like something which is maybe not kosher or not established, to yourself now, investing yourself and then recommending also. So what was that journey? Please talk a little bit about that and what changed your mind.
I think I mean, obviously, the Bitcoin has a set of characteristics which none of the existing money has. Um, we can talk through that, but then, it was essentially, I believe that when you read a lot,
Hmm.
um, it starts to come out of you again at some point because you become full of it, and starts to come out of you. And I realized that uh, I mean, I was getting disturbed with even after financial freedom. We had done all the planning. You take care of inflation. You take care of all those assumptions you make, and you reach a corpus and you get financially
Yeah.
free. You quit your job, and you are comfortable that your portfolio is growing. But at some point, you realize that this is still not true freedom, and that's what I realized because things are not still in my control. I am assuming that my corpus will continue to grow even at a very nominal pace of, let's say, 8%.
Hmm.
So that's an assumption I'm making, and that assumption is not in my hands. Somebody else is controlling what should be the interest rate of fixed deposits, what should be the monetary policy, how much should be the inflation. Um, so, I mean, one of the recent news, I don't know whether you heard or not, regarding employee provident fund, people who have
Hmm.
been, working for years and decades. So suddenly government comes up with a notification that nobody can withdraw more than 75% of their EPF corpus until they retire, you know, or they lose their job permanently. So, things like these where you don't control, I mean, your own money, that's
Yeah.
where, Bitcoin hit me, that's something which you control fully. If I have to give something to you, who is the third party? Why is the third party needed? If I have to give 1 rupee to you, why do I need somebody else to intervene in that or to control in that or to do a surveillance on that? So that's where, I got started getting my mind started getting shifted a little bit in favor of Bitcoin. And the more I read about it, the more I realized what a truthful thing it is. I mean, it's not something which I am investing to sell off for profits over the next 5 years. That's not how I'm looking at Bitcoin. I'm looking at Bitcoin as sound money, as money which I can pass it on to my generations if I wish to. I don't really need to bother so much about what will be the returns I'll be getting out of it or how I'll be selling it. It's a very different mindset. So coming from a background of being financially free, I see this is the next level of freedom. You know, this
Hmm.
next level of freedom where you control everything. You're not
Correct.
dependent on anyone. I don't need a bank account. I don't need any surveillance. I don't need anything if I have to give money to you. And as good as that. And then nobody can print it. Nobody can. I mean, things like these. I mean, there's so many things I want to talk about, but then I think we'll run short of time if we keep doing that.
Yeah.
But I would suggest people who are new to Bitcoin to really go and read. I mean, I cannot convince I'm not that an expert that I can convince somebody who is a naysayer on Bitcoin to, okay, go now you start buying Bitcoin. I cannot. You have to read. You have to really convince yourself. Of course, there will be questions, and for that, of course, we can answer some of those questions, but somebody has to be open-minded to, to take in the answers. So I think reading is the key. So that's
Got
what
it.
I
And when you recommend Bitcoin to your students and
Mhm.
customers, what is the most common objections that you get from them? And sometimes have you gotten anything which has kind of has that quite when you recommended Bitcoin, has any of the customers saying, "Oh, I thought you were a person who were financially or an expert in finance, and how come you're recommending Bitcoin?" Any of those kind of stories that you've had?
Oh, I think every kind of objection we have had, not only with our followers. I mean, on Twitter also, a lot of times when I go and post about something about Bitcoin, you see a lot of
Yeah,
objection coming in from people who really follow me on every other financial aspect.
yeah.
So, what you mentioned, like people come up with strange kind of answers to whatever you post on Twitter and whatever you tell. So first worry that people have is the volatility of Bitcoin,
Mm.
and we have to tell them that it's a mechanism to discover the right price, and this is going to happen. It will stabilize over time. It will take its own sweet time. But if you're saying that it should be linear growth, it's not going to happen. It's a price discovery mechanism. It happened with gold. It's going to happen with Bitcoin also. For gold, it probably lasted 100 years. For Bitcoin, it may last 10, 20 years. We don't know. But then volatility is one which people are a lot worried about, because the
Yeah.
price can fall like what happened recently, it fell by
Correct.
20-30% just in few
Yeah.
days, right?
Yeah.
And earlier it has been even more serious falls we have seen. But we have to again tell them that, I mean, this is an asset class where even if it's fallen by 70% or 60% or 30%, it has always come back stronger.
Mm.
And that's where it builds faith. And you got to understand this is again going to happen. It's not that now that's again slowly coming back to where it was earlier, that it's not going to dip again. It's again going to happen, because that's, as I said, this is a process of discovering the right price. And this is all, as Bitcoin becomes more distributed, it moves to more retail investors, you will see that prices tend to get more stabilized. So I think stability is one factor. And second, of course, is what people keep hearing, whatever frauds happen in exchanges and all that stuff. So people are not aware about self custody. They don't even know why to do self custody and all. So of course they have suffered. I have suffered. Initially when I started investing, I was investing in WazirX and I was keeping my
Hmm.
coins there itself. And you know what happened with WazirX. So I
Yeah.
lost a lot of money. But that's probably a learning process. I mean, I tell people that when my kids were studying, I invested so much amount in, let's say, FitG preparation or IIT preparation. They never went through IIT. I mean, that's not a waste of money, but that's
Yeah.
an investment. That's a learning process. So again,
Yeah.
the same way. So I lost it because I wasn't knowledgeable enough to understand that I need to take self custody. But then with experience, we learned, and today, of course, we tell whatever best we know. We tend to tell to our people.
Great. So, from when you were a naysayer or when you didn't understand Bitcoin to when you started understanding Bitcoin, was there some kind of a aha moment for you when some to say, "Oh, yeah, this makes sense"? And was there any such either a book or an incident or a moment when it suddenly said, "Oh, let me try it," and it makes sense?
I think to me the best part which I still like about Bitcoin, or for that matter any similar currency, would be the decentralization part. I had never understood decentralization or the need for decentralization earlier. And I mean, when we were growing up, we were just told that this is the money you got to use and this is how you can use. We never understood who is controlling this and what is the harm it is causing to us if somebody else is controlling it in a centralized fashion. You know,
Yeah.
so we never understood this. But then, when I truly pictured or visioned what is decentralization and how nobody in the world can control how Bitcoin works today. I mean, it's only with agreement of millions and millions of nodes. Only when then agreement happens, then only can a rule be changed. Otherwise, it cannot be changed. So it's not in anybody's control. No country, no government, no company, no I mean, nobody controls it. I mean, that was the most powerful thing which hit me when I was, understanding Bitcoin, and that's where my mind majorly shifted towards it. It's not that tomorrow somebody, I mean, as I was telling you about the EPF rule, there had been similar rules on. I mean, every year we keep seeing controls and surveillance by government, and it keeps happening. I don't know what I was reading yesterday, where government has mandated Aadhaar card for something. I don't remember which thing, but I mean, everywhere they want a surveillance. That what are you doing with your money? Where are you spending? Why should I tell you where am I spending? And people do ask questions like, what if tomorrow somebody changes the rules of Bitcoin? And so then once you've understood decentralization and the idea behind it, then I think that's so powerful. And with the fact, coupled with the fact that, I mean, so many people have already adopted it and have faith in Bitcoin. So coupled with these two facts, I think it becomes a very, very powerful money in today's world. Yeah.
Super. So decentralization and network effect
Yeah.
made it for you. But many times when I speak to people, people say, "Oh, what is backing Bitcoin and decentralization? Or if no government is behind it, no company is behind it, there's no CEO, then why? How does it have value?" So you are telling us that decentralization is the key reason why it has value, and many people tell me that oh, because there's no backing or there's no government behind it, why? How does this money or how does this asset have any value? So can you help our audience understand why do you think decentralization is very critical, and what are the properties that decentralization creates for people who adopt it, or what benefits does it create for them if they adopt it?
So I think in terms of the backing question that you asked, I think a lot of people now understand the idea of proof of work and how energy backs the entire Bitcoin value. Uh, I think today's situation, we should compare Bitcoin to gold and how gold gets its value, with the energy that's consumed, the manpower that's used to really mine gold. And of course, Bitcoin takes on the same concept of mining and, the proof of work to assign a value to Bitcoin. Uh, Decentralization, coming back to the same point, became powerful for me because of the control and surveillance part. I mean, I am a freedom seeker, so I have been chasing freedom since childhood, I would say. I mean, not financial freedom, but when we were young, we used to feel that, okay, when we have a lot of money, we'll have the freedom to choose what to buy, what not to. And when we grew up, we started earning money. Oh, then we realized that yes, we have money, but we don't have the freedom to spend our time, and that's where we chose to be financially free. Now, once we are financially free, we still are longing for kind of a freedom where we decide everything about our money. That's what is still lacking in our financial freedom today. Until and unless we move to a kind of money which gives you that freedom. And this technological shift, I believe, Abhay, happens. I mean, every few hundred years. I mean, of course, the fiat money has been in existence for around 200, 300 years now. But then, this technological shift has to happen. It has always happened, starting with even before barter, I would say, when there was no ledger at all. Even social ledger, as we call it. So even in those times, starting from those times, whenever technology evolved, this shift happened, and people opposed, and then people argued, and then got angry, and then finally they found a way to get into it, but they were too late probably. So this shift has to happen, and it is happening
Got it.
right. I mean, we are fortunate that it's happening right in front of our eyes. We are alive at that point. This shift is happening. Maybe this no such similar shift will happen for another 200, 300 years. Who knows? Because that's how historically shifts have happened. So we're lucky we are in that phase, and I always believe that it's okay to fail, even if it fails. I'm saying, let's take a hypothetical case. Even if it fails, I'm okay to fail rather than carry the guilt of not even trying something which I felt personally was very powerful. So I am going with that full mindset that I don't want my kids to ask me, what were you doing, when this shift was happening? You were financially free, you had the time, you had everything, you had the money, you could have. And I don't want that question when I am old, let's say
Got
80 years, and my kids are asking me this question. So I am very, very positive about it. I see it as a very powerful money shift that's happening right in front of our eyes. And I'm not saying that you forget all your investments and forget all your portfolio and dump everything into Bitcoin. I'm not saying that. But I think you have to slowly, like, for example, what we recommend to our subscribers, is start with 2% of your portfolio, not more than that.
Yep.
Get the
Yep.
confidence, see how it, I mean, see the volatility, withstand it, read more about it in the meanwhile. As you get more conviction, you will automatically ask me to raise. And that's what happens. People are coming back and saying, why are we investing only 2%? Now the price has fallen recently when it fell. So they are asking me, can we invest more? Can no, hold on. We don't know how bad it can go. Okay, so keep investing slowly. So we have to now. We are reaching a stage, at least in our community. We are reaching a stage. We have to tell people to don't try to time it. That it's a low price now. I should invest a lot of money. Don't do that. Keep investing systematically. It's a long term thing, right? We're not selling it after 2 years or 1 year. So that's how it is. I mean, it's been a big shift for me over the last 3 4 years, and I am seeing the same shift happening in my community within a year. What
Wow.
happened with me in 4 years is happening now within a year. So that's the pace at which it's catching up.
Excellent. Excellent. So, from your perspective, what I'm taking away is that you're seeing it as a technological shift, as a shift in what is the store of value that people use.
Mhm.
And it seems inevitable that Bitcoin will become the primary store of value for many individuals, companies, and maybe even countries over the next couple of years.
Well, absolutely. I think we've started reading so much about a lot of countries adopting Bitcoin as their strategic reserve, at least proposing that in the parliament.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not something which you see with which any asset class which is not strong enough. It's
Yeah.
not going to get into European Parliament or American Parliament, or it's not going to get in there like that. And countries are planning to make the reserves, strategic reserves for Bitcoin, and companies are already making it. A lot of public
Yeah.
companies are making Bitcoin as one of their strategic reserves, at least, if not the only one. But so that's a big shift. I mean, what other indicators do we need to see that this is the money that's going to shape the future?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, if you're going to wait and till everything stabilizes and the government says, okay, Bitcoin is our strategic reserve, Indian government says that, or everybody started using Bitcoin. If that's the point you're waiting for, of course, I mean, you still can get into Bitcoin at that point, but then, as we say, you will get the coins at the price you deserve. So,
Yeah.
so it's okay to wait. I'm not saying that you will not get into it if you don't wait, but then it might be too late for you to really get into it.
Got it. And as a financial consultant advisor to people, I've also heard from many people
Mhm.
to say, hey, this is not regulated and I'm not allowed to do this. From some of I have a dear friend who does a lot of mutual fund advisory, and I was talking to him and I was trying to convince him, saying, your customers will be very happy for you because most of the times you're selling undifferentiated products and customers would have some queries, and if you just answered their queries about Bitcoin, educated them, versus trying to tell them, oh, no, 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 don't touch it, this is not a good thing for you, why don't you educate yourself? And his resistance was, oh, I'm not allowed to do this, or someone stops me from doing this. What is your thought about that? So, if any financial advisor is watching this and learning about this, what do you think? Is there anything stopping them to learn about it? Is there anything stopping them to explain this to their customers?
Well, if you're asking me if any financial advisor is not learning Bitcoin because he's been asked not to, then probably that's the strongest reason he should be learning it. Because see what's happening. What I can learn, somebody else should not decide. I mean, that's the bare minimum, right? So I'm not talking about what you're recommending to your customers or clients or community, but what you can learn, it should be totally your decision. I mean, if somebody is saying you should not learn this and you should only learn this, that's where the entire concept is. I mean, that's how Bitcoin came into picture, because why is somebody else controlling my learning? What I can speak, what I can learn, what I can wear, and what money I can use. I mean, these should be in my control. I mean, so so I think if there is somebody who is not willing to learn because he's saying that he's not allowed to learn, then either probably he's misunderstood what he's allowed or not, or he should first, I mean, he should immediately get into learning and trying to convince himself or herself
Yeah.
first that why Bitcoin, you know, that conviction is so important before you go on to tell anybody else. You have to first convince
Yes.
yourself.
Correct.
So I think that's where a lot of people are in a hurry. Uh,
Yeah.
so I always believe that unless you have, like, I started coaching for financial freedom after I attained financial freedom. And I started recommending Bitcoin after I had invested in Bitcoin for at least 1 or 2 years, and I have understood Bitcoin to a fair extent. So similarly, somebody who is saying that he's not allowed as to probably understand a little bit more about Bitcoin, and I think he has some confusion there. I think nobody's stopping for you. I mean, you to learn anything. I don't think so. If there is something like that, then that's wrong.
Okay, excellent. I fully agree with you. And I was telling this friend of mine that you sell mutual funds most commonly to your customers. And the biggest mutual fund AMC in the world, BlackRock, launched the Bitcoin ETF in 2024. And from January 2024 to now, it's become the biggest ETF in the history of ETF. It has become the biggest revenue line for BlackRock. So that's also a signal, as you were rightly mentioning, that there is a signal of countries adopting it as a strategic reserve, companies adopting it as a strategic reserve, and then a large AMC, or the largest AMC of the world, BlackRock, with $10 trillion, are launching a Bitcoin ETF
Yeah,
in one of the largest capital markets of the world, and it becoming the biggest ETF in the history of ETF. These are all signals, and we
yeah.
can say, hey, we'll ignore these signals and
Still,
we'll wait for BlackRock to launch in India before we will pick
uh,
that. But these are signals that is good enough to at least start learning.
yeah, true.
Great. So, Manoj, because you work with so many people who are in the process of seeking financial freedom, let's assume that there are two personas and who come to you, and one persona, and these are all well settled, well earning people. So, imagine a person in anywhere between 35 to 45 years old. He or she has a great
Mhm.
job. They have a EMI for a house which is going. They have a good car. They go for holidays, and most of their portfolio is in mutual fund, a combination of mutual fund, stocks, and fixed deposits, and some real estate. And they don't put 2% or 5% allocation to Bitcoin. What is an advice to you of why they should consider Bitcoin, and what could be the risk of ignoring Bitcoin?
I mean, of course, when we talk about including Bitcoin in anyone's portfolio, it's very important to understand that the characteristics of Bitcoin. So it's the right kind of money that you should be getting into. Forget about the returns for a moment. Uh, so that's why we're not recommending like 10% or 20%. We're only talking about 2% because we wanted to understand Bitcoin. And the whole idea when people actually start investing, whether it's 1 or 2%, that is when they start learning. And the idea of 1 or 2% is just so that they learn and understand. And once they get the conviction, as I told you, what happened recently was once they get the conviction, they themselves come back and say, "We want to invest more," and we have to actually hold them back. Okay, no, 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 wait. So the my idea of recommending Bitcoin to people after myself getting convinced about it is for them to understand Bitcoin, and that's why 1 to 2% allocation, and that too we don't recommend it to everyone. uh, People need to have a certain level of risk profile, certain level of net worth before we recommend it because many people are dealing with negative net worth and things like that.
Yeah,
So we don't recommend them as of now. But yeah, maximum we have recommended anyone is 5%. Uh, but slowly, people are coming once you get the conviction, then it's I'm repeating that, but it's difficult to hold people once you realize what you have in hand. It's all about realization. So I'll give you an example of not Bitcoin, but uh, how realization is the key. This compounding, I had read about compounding since school. I
Hmm.
understand compounding. Uh, I know the formula. I've used it 100 times in the exams in schools everywhere. I knew everything about compounding. But the realization hit me at a certain moment, and that moment was when I looked at one of the PPF passbooks of my elder brother, where
Hmm.
the interest credit for the year was more than my annual salary that time in L&T, and
Wow.
so I was wondering, there is something wrong I am doing. I am working for the entire year and earning less than what this guy is earning without doing anything. So there is some disconnect. So that's when it hit me. So as I said, this is a realization that happens when it hits you. Similarly, for Bitcoin, when I understood the decentralization part, and that's what hit me. So something is going to hit someone. And
Yeah.
so people say, I understand Bitcoin, very nice and good. Okay, it may have a future. We may use it for bank settlements or things like that. We will know a lot of things. But then once it hits you, then you don't want to stop. Then you don't want to stop at 5%, 10%. I have seen people think, okay, whatever extra money, extra rupees you have, exchange it for sats, exchange it for sats. That's the craze people have. Once it hit them. So, and when it will hit you, how it will hit you, nobody knows. So you got to keep reading, keep talking, like having these kind of conversations. At some point, something is going to hit you, and that's where a different journey will start. Same thing happened with me for financial freedom journey also. So, all these things in life, when you're taking a new path, there has to be one or two triggers that push you in that direction, and it's different for everyone. So keep reading, keep understanding. At some point, I mean, keep discussing. At some point, something's going to hit you to take a new direction.
Yeah. So what I'm taking away is that uh, doing a small allocation might be the fastest path to learning,
Learning,
because if you have
yes,
a smaller
right,
allocation, then you will learn faster versus just debating. But if the core push is to try and trigger something so that you can learn about it, and once you learn about it, then you will go down the rabbit hole yourself,
yes,
and then as your understanding conviction increases, your allocation will automatically
yes,
increase.
correct.
Great. So you also talked about Bitcoin. A lot of companies are allocating Bitcoin onto their balance sheet. So if I am a CFO of the company, it could be a small and medium enterprise, or it could be a large enterprise. Uh, do you think I should be learning about Bitcoin? I am a successful CFO. I am managing the costs of the company, the balance sheet of the company, whether the company makes money, and how does it make more money. Why should I care about Bitcoin, and why what do you recommend that I should be interested in Bitcoin, or I should try and learn about Bitcoin, if at all? Then why?
Yeah, I think as a strategic reserve for the company, definitely yes, because um since it's a different kind of money, you're kind of diversifying for a company, the kind of reserves you're holding. And in business environment, things can fall haywire very quickly. And
Yeah.
it's very important to have strategic reserves which are diversified. And the latest technological diversified reverse is Bitcoin. So I think it's very, very important that we have, as an organization, strategic reserves for Bitcoin, whatever be the allocation that is within the management to discuss. But then we must have such kind of reserves, and we are seeing a lot of big companies having it, big and small companies having it, and I think if you don't move with the technology, the challenge happens is that once you once you grow beyond a certain age, you stop learning new stuff at the same speed, at least at which you were learning earlier when you were student at school or college, or even in your initially in your job, you're learning a lot of stuff. But that saturates after a certain point, and when you become a CEO or a CFO of a company, and you are like 50 years plus, and then these technological shifts seem like alien to you, but it's not difficult to understand. I mean, you don't really have to get into the technology of how actually Bitcoin network transfers value. You don't have to get into that, but at least you got to understand the concept of why this technological shift is happening and why is it the right time and how it is happening. So I think for companies, it's very important that they move into a kind of reserve which is different from the kind of reserves that they typically hold as a diversifier at least. And obviously, in the long run, it's going to pay them off. And you never know. We've seen a lot of countries going through a lot of financial crisis, very high inflation, and so we've seen all those things. And if you think that it's not going to happen with India or with XYZ country or with US or with anyone else, probably it's just a matter of time, probably. And
Yeah.
Bitcoin is proving itself to be a kind of a global currency. We are talking about um, trading globally. We're talking about becoming interplanetary. We're talking about multiple things, right? And then, so is USD being the one and only currency, I don't think it's going to work, and especially USD, becoming nowadays, you know what's happening with US dollar
Yep.
nowadays. So it's not, I don't personally feel it's going to sustain as the father figure currency of the entire globe. So you got to have something which is globally accepted, and Bitcoin is the only one you would be betting on.
Excellent. Super. So, if you're a CFO for the company, then bare minimum, you should explore Bitcoin from a risk management perspective to
Yeah.
say, hey, what are the properties of Bitcoin which can help your company diversify either from a treasury perspective or reduce your risk in case there was some kind of constraints for you to be able to use the currency that you use at this point of time for cross-border trade or for storing value or
Hmm.
any of those above.
Correct.
Great. And as you were rightly mentioning, Manoj, your passion is writing, and I've heard that you're writing a
Mhm.
book. So you want to talk about your book? What are you writing, and what inspired you to? What is this book about, and when is it coming, and what is it? What inspired you to spend the time to write a book?
Okay, so I think I've written 7 books so far, and
Wow.
all my books are based on my personal experiences. And of late, whatever personal finance related books I've written, which is the latest one was The Art of Saving Money, and prior to that, it was The Autobiography of a Stock. So these kind of books are all personal finance books, but written in a fictional, simple language format. So it's a fictional story. Like Autobiography of a Stock was about somebody is a Mr. Stock, and
Oh, okay.
uh,
This
he's got
seems like the
time.
title inspired from Autobiography of a
Of a
Yogi.
yogi. No, not really inspired, but actually, it's this Mr. Stock is writing the book and how people come and you know do those typical mistakes, and how he coaches them. So it's a very fictional book. Similarly, the last one, The Art of Saving Money, is about a resort where there's somebody called as a money monk who is a coach to various people who have come into the resort, and they're all high income earners, but they don't know how to save money, so all those kind of things. It's a very so the people what people like about these things is finance is a little I would say not heavy subject, but it's a little dry subject.
Yeah,
So to make it more interesting and to make it lively and to make it
yeah.
simpler for a common man to understand, so I write in these formats. So Bitcoin book, which you talked about, is again a sci-fi book.
Wow.
It had to be sci-fi because it's tech. So it's a fictional story of someone who is fed up of managing his portfolios, who is financially free like me, and who is has enough money, but he's really fed up of managing, maintaining, and seeing inflation happening all around, seeing banks failing. He's fed up of all this, and then one night when he's very frustrated, he moves into something called as the chrono ledger. We call it.
Okay.
There is a alien gadget which comes in and it takes him to the history, and starting from prior to barter, starting from 10,000 BC, that ledger takes him to various scenarios and how money evolved, and how it lost relevance and why it lost relevance, what were the learnings. So it goes through the entire chain and ends up in the future 100 years from now. So that's kind of fiction I've built in, with the only objective to help people understand that. technological shifts in money happen every few hundred years. It's not
Mhm.
something which is happening for the first time. A lot of people don't know that. People think
Yeah,
fiat money has been existing forever, and
correct.
it's now we are proposing something extraordinary. It's nothing like that. It's been these shifts have been happening every 300-400 years, and now it's another shift happening. So people get to visualize all those shifts in real scenarios in history with real names, real places, real characters. So I think that's going to build some conviction in some people. I think that's the aim. So let's see how
Excellent.
it goes. Mm.
And you've read so many books. So, are there any books on Bitcoin or finance that you would recommend people, specifically Bitcoin or something? Someone who's early in their journey, still discovering, is curious. Are there any books that you would recommend that helped you, and
First
you
one
think
you
that
should read
that
is
could?
my book, which will come out in 3 months. Okay. I think the Broken Money and the Bitcoin Standard, these are the two, I think, books for the first time,
Mhm.
people who are really wanting to understand why Bitcoin,
Yep.
forget Bitcoin, why this technological shift is happening. So I would suggest everyone to read these two books.
Excellent. And then, if people want to find you, and if people want to join your community, and they are interested in financial freedom, how do they? Is there any place that they can reach out and join this community? What can they do to join this community and explore
Yeah.
more and know more about Manoj?
I think I have my website www.manoj-arora.com. I will send you
Okay.
the links also. You can put it on your
Yeah.
video or
Show
whatever.
notes. Yeah.
And there you have links for our community, for our elite program, even for Bitcoin. What there's a separate group we have in our community for Bitcoin, a separate group on personal finance. So that's the importance I give to Bitcoin nowadays, because initially we had a common group on personal finance where we were discussing everything, stocks and mutual funds and even Bitcoin. And then all discussions were rolling down back to Bitcoin only. So then some people were fed up. Okay, everything is Bitcoin nowadays. So we separated into two groups. Okay, one is personal finance and one is Bitcoin now. So anyway, and one is a life skills group we have in our communities. The other one which we're adding now is our tree plantation group, which I run. I run a tree plantation NGO for that. So basically, on the website you will find everything. All
Got it.
the books I have written, all the communities we have, and all the programs we run, everything.
Great. So we'll put that in the show notes. Anything else, Manoj, that you wanted to share with the audience, either about Bitcoin or anything else which you have experienced that you would want to share with the audience?
No, I just had one curiosity, or I would say one question to ask you, which was typically,
Sure.
so how did you, I mean, of course, you would have built the conviction on Bitcoin first, probably the way I did, or some other way, but then how did you think about starting a Bitcoin only exchange? That's something which really
Yeah.
excited me. You're not trying to expand too much,
Yeah.
just keeping it Bitcoin specific. There are thousands
Yeah.
of other currencies people are actually dealing in.
Yeah.
So what made you stick only to Bitcoin?
Yeah, so great question, Manoj. So basically, or my conviction is that every individual, every family, every company, and every country will buy Bitcoin. It's just a matter of time. So the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So that's where I am coming from. And if I look at it from that lens, then adding anything else, at least in my perception, creates a distraction. So if we want to really, if I envisage, so if I close my eyes and imagine 2035 or 2040 from an India perspective, then every individual, every family, every company, every country. So think of State Bank of India, State Bank, Life Insurance Corporation, State RBI. Everyone would have Bitcoin. And if you imagine the size of the opportunity, then that opportunity is greater than all the altcoins or anything else that you might be able to sell. It's just that it might take a little more time. So that's our thinking, that the whole way that we think about finance. As you were mentioning earlier, this is a fundamental shift in technology, and that fundamental shift is so huge that every aspect of how we think about money, how we store money, what financial products that we consume, how mutual funds work, and what's the purpose of it, what value does it add to humanity, all of that will slowly and steadily change, and all of that will converge to Bitcoin, or Bitcoin will be a large portion of that. And so that is when we imagine that that is the kind of opportunity, then kind of getting distracted by
Mm,
trying to add something
mhm,
else just creates distraction. And we think that the opportunity size is very, very
mm,
big. So it's not a charity, it's just that the opportunity size is so big that anyone who really is in for the long run, we think we want to be the Bitcoin brand for India, and hopefully over a period of time for Southeast Asia. And we think the opportunity is so big that just being able to serve the various aspects of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin for individuals would be different, Bitcoin for institutions would be different, Bitcoin for countries would be different, how do they custody it, and then the whole financial piece of whether it's a ETF and whether it's a treasury company,
mm,
what kind of reports will they need, what kind of on-chain analysis would they need.
mm.
All of that is
Yeah.
facets of it, and whether you would want to buy a second flat or a third flat, or whether you would want to park all your surplus in Bitcoin, because you don't have to worry about if you want to think about the next stock, are you looking for the next Nvidia,
Mm,
and you don't know what are the risks in that Nvidia, whether AI bust will happen, and if there's any of those. So if you stretch all of that and say, why does anyone look for investment, what is their core need, is to protect purchasing power. And if their core need is protecting purchasing power, then likely Bitcoin will do the job. And then that way, humans can
yeah.
focus all their energy into doing whatever is their primary job. And if they have surplus time, then they don't need to go learn about stock markets. They can just spend that time with family, friends,
Yeah.
pursue
True.
hobbies, and the freedom that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So that's what is the we think that the opportunity size is very, very big. And with Bitcoin only, we can really do justice to that opportunity size. And also, the journey for creating or fulfilling that opportunity itself is also very joyful and very fulfilling. Every customer that we are able to touch, and once they understand Bitcoin, is a joy, and they come back, and as their understanding of Bitcoin increases, they come back and share their good fortune that they were
Mm.
able to understand Bitcoin. So those are the inspirations which helped us come together and say, Bitcoin only is a large opportunity, and let's go out and build something, even if it takes a couple of years, maybe 5, 7, 10 years. So we are up for it, and we think 10 years out, this will seem like a no-brainer that you should be Bitcoin only.
Yeah, interesting. In fact, one of the points you touched was, this, I believe this entire investing stuff
Yeah,
became a necessity only because
yeah.
money started getting devalued.
Crypto products and NFTs are unregulated and can be highly risky. There may be no regulatory recourse for any loss from such transactions.